Good afternoon. I'm Heidi Thompson, your legacy lifeguard with Lifeguarding Legacies with this Monday's edition of the Monday Noontide. And I provide all kinds of estate planning services, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, deed work, all the kinds of things to make sure that what you've worked for passes flawlessly to the people you love and the causes you care about. On today's episode of Monday Noontide, I have the joy and pleasure of meeting with Andy Beal of CONVENE. This is a Christian CEO networking and mastermind group that he's put together that's getting ready to launch. And I am so excited to have you on the show, Andy.
Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. So, hey, to Andy, tell me a little about yourself.
Okay, sure. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, and after I got married, moved to Denver, and we had a couple of children. A son who now lives in Beijing, China. He's teaching in China, and then our daughter and son-in-law and four grandchildren live in Memphis. So about a year ago, after 40 years with ServiceMaster, we decided to make our way back to Arizona, and we moved to Phoenix. And rather than just live the retirement life where I do all the fishing and loafing that I could possibly do, I decided I'd do something that would be more meaningful, and CONVENE seemed to be the right ticket for me. And so I signed on with them, and it's a Christian CEO advisory team. So we advise each other and help each other for a full day.
Right.
Yeah, full day once a month.
That's
And
kind of a long time.
yeah, full day. That's it is. I hear that sometimes a full day. Wow, that is a long time. But when you think about it, what do you really devote your time to when you run a business? And I just the other day I had a guy tell me he's living in the weeds all the time, and what he meant by that was that he's busy with all the details of the work, and he can't really work on the business as opposed to working. He just works in it all the time. And so when we talk about time, uh, really a business owner or a CEO is responsible for future value. And so when they look at the company, they're trying to think about what's it going to be worth? What's the future state that I want to put it into? And should it look like in the future? And then once you decide that, then you have to steward and guide the business in that direction. And CEOs and business owners don't have a lot of help from the people that report to them, because they're usually concerned with present value. So, but when you're concerned with future value and moving the business to that future state, you have to get in this visionary space where you're thinking about how am I gonna get there? What's that look like? And how do I predict the future? That's not easy, and it takes time to do that. So hopefully you get it to a larger scale when you get there, and it's a bigger business. So to do that requires more time and a different type of thinking than just problem solving. So if I'm going to problem solve, I think one way, but if I'm going to steward and guide the business to a future state, I really have to think differently about it, and that takes time. So so problem solving might take you a short time or a different type of thinking. And so it helps when you have somebody on the outside that can sit in a room with you who have the same similar experiences that you do as a CEO or a business owner, and you can brainstorm and literally think about what you want to do and where you want to go and how you're going to get there. With our group, obviously it's a Christian group, so everyone thinks about, well, how do we live our lives according to what Christ wants, and how do we build our business in a way that's honoring to God, and what's that look like? So in the process of doing that, we sit in this room and we can talk about the ethical side of the business, or the things that intersect with the business, such as your marriage. It could be your ethical concerns. It could be your employee issues, or maybe kids that may intersect with the business, because they impact things, and so that can interrupt your process of steward and guiding the business to that future state. So so when you're sitting in the room and you have opportunities in front of you, or you have problems and issues in front of you, then you can sit with those 300 years of experience, all those men and women in the room who have all this experience, and say, here's what I'm dealing with. And so then they can help you.
Got
And
it.
then after you do that for an hour or so, then you turn to somebody else and how can we help you? And they say, well, I'm here's the problem I'm having. And so while that is all going on, the guy sitting across the table sort of gets uh, vicarious learning, because he'll look across the table and hear somebody say, oh, this is how I dealt with my manager, and this is the problem I've been having. And all of a sudden he says, oh, I've got the same exact problem. So he starts writing down what what he's hearing, and so you learn. There's all sorts of learning that occurs at that level when you're at that when you're doing that. You can't get that by sitting with your employees in the room,
No,
uh,
of course not.
because they don't always tell you uh, the whole thing or the whole truth, or what they really think you should do is, that's a bad idea. Well, who's going to tell the owner that it's a bad idea? You know, but if you're in a room with a bunch of other guys that people you really trust, that you have confidence in, they're happy to tell you it's a bad idea. Or I think
Right.
I'm not sure about that because of this and this and this. How would you deal with that? And they ask you questions, and then you can begin to think in a new way and get fresh approaches to things.
Right. So I know that you do something with assessments. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, when somebody joins the group, they get the opportunity to get four basic assessments. We do a financial assessment for them, where we look at their financial state and we compare it to similar businesses around the country, and we benchmark their business against these other businesses around the country. And when we do this financial benchmarking, they can compare what should my expenses look like, what should my sales and income look like, and how do I compare with them. So we do this financial assessment of the business, and then we give the member a nice cash flow process to use for managing the cash in the business. And cash is important. It's some say it's cash is king, and I
Yes.
would be inclined to agree. So you got to have cash to operate the business. Another assessment we use is a DISC assessment. So it's a leadership assessment, and it's really quite nice, because it gives you all the tools you need to know to how can I deal with my manager, how can I deal with my customers, what's my personality like, and what adjustments do I need to make.
Great communication tool.
Great,
Absolutely.
great tool. And then you can also get the same assessments if you want for key people and key leaders in your business,
Mhm.
and compare yourself with them, and it'll compare them and help you realize, well, gee, this person is really the exact opposite of me in this way. And I really should tread a little bit differently with this guy, because I may not do so well if I don't tread a little differently.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
things like that. And then we do an organizational development roadmap. So we help the owners and CEOs with a start for next year, in terms of what's the year look like, what do I want to accomplish, how am I going to get there, and then we ask the key leaders in that person's business to weigh in on what their thoughts are on it. So he gets sort of a 360 in terms of what does he think it should look like, and what do my key people think it should look like. So you get a better view of what the roadmap should be, and
Good.
that's a helpful tool. And then I
Sure.
do with each member, I do three challenges with them. So we walk through three challenges that they're having, and deal with those in a pretty in-depth manner. So
Nice. And does the rest of the group of CEOs kind of have some of these tools to compare when you sit around and have your day long? Is that part of what you're working on?
it's part of what we work on. Yes, we'll take those assessments and lay them out in front of each other and say, here's what I'm dealing with, here's who I am, and we compare each other and say, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense." But we also do a thing called opportunities and challenges.
Mhm.
And this is about 40% of the meeting, and that's where, let's say Heidi, you were in the group, and we decided that you had a challenge in front of you, whatever that might be, and so we're going to deal with that challenge. So you map it out, and then you tell us what it is, and then the group goes around the room and asks you questions about it.
Mhm.
So it might take 15 minutes for everybody to have a chance to dive a little deeper and gain some more understanding. So they ask you questions, and then we ask, well, what's the biblical concept of this? What's the Bible say about it? What does God say? And so we kind of go around the room and make an assessment of that. So we'll
Wow.
look at your challenge and say, what's God saying here, and what do we as believers think we should be doing? And then the last piece is you have to be quiet, and then everybody goes around the room and tells you what they think. Here's what I think you should do, and we'll write that down. And when they're all done, you can say, well, here's, based on what you've said, here's some things I think I'll do. And then I write that down, because then I'm going to ask you later, did you do those?
Right.
And
And
the
how to
next
go. Yeah.
how to go. And the next month, when you come to the group, you could report to everybody and tell them how it's going for you. And so we'll write all those things down, all those suggestions, and hand them to you. And then you can report back later the next month. So we try
Perfect.
and do at least 3 people a month on that. And
And in
that
the course of the day, are there also speakers that come in?
Yes, that's right. We do have speakers. So
Okay.
one of Convene has a whole bunch of speakers. So we have 3 or 4 speakers a year that pop in, and I'll arrange those. I just talked with one the other day who's a professor at Harvard Business School, and she's a believer and aligned with what Convene believes, and so she's on our selected list. So hopefully she'll be out this summer, and I'm
Nice.
excited about that. So.
Yeah. So tell me about the kinds of people that your group attracts right now.
Okay, CEOs and business owners. I have one fellow that's flying in from Portland, Oregon, to be in the group. Coming down once a month to be in the group.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
Another one coming down from Prescott, and then everybody else is here in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, and so they'll come from all over. I've got a guy in real estate business, commercial real estate. Another guy has an industrial business, sheet metal business. Another one has a fastener business. So he sells big fasteners to companies all over the country. And then we got a guy that does um, uh, well, he does what do you call it? Appraisals, home
Mm-hmm.
appraisals.
Mm-hmm.
Only he has 400 or 500 appraisers around the country that does it for him. So he has kind of a national footprint. So we have a variety of people like that in the business, and coming, and then we even have a guy from Phoenix Seminary who's in the group. So it's kind of fun and different.
That is different.
Yep, yep. We have a guy in broadcasting that's in the group. Who comes out of a broadcasting background, and so there's a lot of different folks, and that variety is very, very healthy.
I would think so. I mean, you start thinking about that. That means you've got people that are in the development sector with the where they've got warehouses, and then you've got people that are more on the personal services, and then you've got this. It sounds like the gamut, and that would be a wealth of a very well-rounded board, I would think,
Very
board
well
of
rounded.
directors.
Yeah. And you
Yeah,
add it up, there's 300 years of experience
crazy.
in working in business or something business related, and it's pretty fun to be a part of that.
I can imagine. So, if someone were to meet you, what would be your short version of what you would tell them about what you do?
Well, I lead a group of Christian CEOs and business owners. It's a peer-to-peer advisory group, and we meet monthly to work on our business and do it for the Lord and do it for His benefit.
That's beautiful. Okay, so if someone wanted to learn more, how would they reach you?
Well, I my probably the best way to reach me is Andy.Beal, that's Beal, at convenenow.com.
Convene Now. Okay, Andy.Beal at convenenow.com.
That would be the easiest way and best way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Okay. And I presume you're also all over social media, LinkedIn,
LinkedIn, I'm
everything.
easy to
Yep.
find on LinkedIn, and I post on there regularly. So,
Perfect. All right. Anything else you want to add today? Anything?
well, I'm big on value, and I think value is a very misunderstood concept when it comes to uh, because I think there's no difference between creating value and doing good for people. So um, when I used to ask the franchise owners I worked with, what is the purpose of business? And I'd hear things like make money, to create profit, to satisfy the shareholders. I'd hear all sorts of things. The real purpose of business is to create value. And if you read Ephesians 2:10, the purpose of being a believer is to do good works. And so when you do good works, it's the same as creating value. So for example, if you make something for a customer that they appreciate, they're willing to give you a profit for that. They're willing to pay you a profit for whatever you've done, service or good that you provided. And that's they see it as something that's good. So value is good. If you do something good for your employees, pay them well, create a career path, or do something healthy for employees, that's good also. So that's value. But what is the creation part? Well, the creation part is that God is the creator, and He created you and me and everyone in His image. So we have the ability to create, and the animals can't create like we can. They can't write books, or they can't do art. They can't create a business or create value. And so creating good is the same as doing good works. Is they're the same, essentially the same thing. So it's almost a biblical concept. So
Oh, totally is.
when you integrate your faith with your work, you're
Mhm.
creating value and you're doing good works for people. And so what we do is we sit down and talk about that, see how we do it better.
Well, what I like is, I mean, the very first words of scripture in the beginning, God created. It's the very, very first thing he did. And I've always kind of had this idea. Of course, I've got a son in the arts, so that's a creative world altogether. I've always felt like when we do something really beautiful, do something really meaningful, do something that really serves others, it's kind of like when our kid draws that first cute picture that we put up on the fridge. I feel like God does that with us because that's when we're most showing his initial likeness.
Right.
And
It's
so I,
exactly right. Yeah, the kids
it's,
do wonderful things like that. And when as God's creation, who is God? Well, God is love. And so by love, what he means by that is, okay, if I'm love, I want you to be love to me and to others. And so when you create value, you're loving others, hopefully. And that's all about, is love. So we love our employees, we love our customers, we love people that we work with, and we pay taxes. The taxes go to the community, it helps the community, we're creating value there.
yes,
So you cheat on your taxes, what have you done? Well, you've cheated the system.
right,
And so we shouldn't do that.
right. Well, we're definitely told to render under Caesar's what's Caesar's, but I
Right.
spend a lot of strategy making sure Caesar only gets what's his
You only get
in my
well,
job.
that's true.
Well, hey, this has been such a joy, Andy. I really appreciate your heart. I appreciate what you bring into this community, and I'm grateful that we get to host those kinds of great minds right here in Phoenix.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much,
Thank
Heidi.
you for leaving the fishing pier to re put those fish right back in here
Right.
and grow them here. So thank you for that. Well, this has been your Monday Noontide with Andy Beal. And I'm Heidi Thompson, your legacy lifeguard with Lifeguarding Legacies. If you've been procrastinating on your will or trust, now is the time. I can be reached at 602-529-1827 or info@lifeguardinglegacies.com, or you can find everything you want to know about me at lifeguardinglegacies.com, including booking an appointment right online. Thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great week. Thanks.
Thank you.